Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Hot Mess Murder Club, the podcast where we examine murder cases that weren't just unsolved, but they were mishandled so thoroughly that the system itself actually became part of the crime. In today's case, it's not confusing, but it is repetitive. And that repetition is the entire point. Bodies appeared, they appeared in pieces, and they appeared in public. And instead of narrowing in, Cleveland responded by expanding the chaos. This here is the case of the Cleveland torso murderer, sometimes called the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run. And with me, because this case requires someone who can explain why constant activity is not the same thing as actual work, my dearest, most bestest friend in this whole world, Holly. Hi, Holly.
Hey, Kat. I don't know if I should be insulted or flattered.
I was kind of wondering how you were going to take that.
I mean, I wasn't expecting that, to be honest, but I mean, I'll take it for what it is. It's coming from you. I'll take it as a compliment. Okay. So this case shows what happens when shock becomes policy. Everybody reacts, but no one coordinates. And the offender benefits from that delay, like, every single time.
Yeah, and that delay pretty much starts immediately with the city itself. So hold my hand, and we're going to travel by trains, planes, and automobiles to Cleveland, Ohio. And for some reason, every time I think of Cleveland, Ohio, I think of the Drew Carey show. That intro, Ohio! Oh, man.
I did not think that when I thought Cleveland. I just thought of the car ride I took there with some friends and my dog at one point, and my car exploding on the side of the highway and watching the firemen just drive right past a burning vehicle.
Oh, Ohio!
Ohio!
I have a feeling if we're talking about that show anyway, that Mimi's going to be the one leading this investigation from the sound of it. With her
I was just hoping that wasn't going to come back at me in some way. Like, I was hoping there was going to be no Mimi Holly reference.
Why would I do that? It's too soon. It's too soon in the episode for that.
Okay.
Anyway, so we are in Cleveland, Ohio, primarily between 1934 and 1938, and this is during the height of the Great Depression. So unemployment is widespread, housing instability is incredibly common, and entire communities of unhoused and transient people live near rail lines, riverbanks, and industrial corridors, especially in an area called Kingsbury Run. And that actually sounds kind of like a nice place, but I find out later that that's not. So we're not going to move there. This city is under economic stress and political scrutiny. So Cleveland wants to look controlled, like they've got it together, and a serial killer clearly would not help with that image they're trying to portray.
No. I mean, when leadership prioritizes reassurance over evidence, obviously investigations stop asking who did this and start asking how quickly can this stop being embarrassing, I guess, for the city itself. They've got to be embarrassed for their lack of coordination and their ability to solve a crime.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and just say that embarrassment, it drove every decision that followed. And after I kind of briefed myself over this case, I realized that I think that this investigation would have been better if it just never happened in the first place. Like, a lot less could have gone wrong. Like, there should have been a rule where, like, if you see a hand or a body part on the road, just kick it in the ditch and just let nature take its course. That would have been more effective than this entire investigation.
Feeding the animals, that's fine.
Yeah, and you're helping the wildlife, so it would have been better. But so we're going to get into the victims, and officially there are 12 victims that were attributed to the Cleveland torso murderer. Unofficially, though, that number may be actually higher. Most victims were never identified, which means we know them by labels instead of names. So we have John Doe 1, we have John Doe 2, who is known as the Tattooed Man, and Jane Doe, known as the Lady of the Lake.
I bet I know where they found her.
But I'm curious, how come John Doe 1 doesn't get like a cool description behind his name?
Probably because if he was the first one, maybe they didn't expect there to be multiples. And so he was just a John Doe at that point. But then when they started seeing like multiple bodies started accruing or multiple torsos or whatever, like they needed more than just John Doe 1, John Doe 2, John Doe 3, John Doe 8.
Well, they couldn't have gone back and given him one? Like the Rolex kid? Like
I mean, he wasn't important enough to have a name, according to the investigators. So, I mean,
I'm calling him the Rolex kid just because I think he deserves a name. Well, the victims largely they were adult men in between 20 and 40 years old. At least two of them were women, and all of them were poor, unhoused, transient, or sex workers. One victim, guess who, had a tattoo reading Helen on his arm. It was never publicized, or sorry, it was publicized, but it was never meaningfully followed up on.
Helen would have been the first suspect on my list as an investigator. Like, who is Helen?
Yeah, who is Helen and why is this guy dead? But at the same time, how many Helens are there in the 1930s? There's got to be like everybody. Every female is like a version of Helen.
Or Susan, Joy.
Ooh, yeah, Susan.
Well, the unidentified victims don't just lose like sympathy, they erase investigative leverage. Without their names, the police lose their routines, the relationships, and the last known movements. That's not tragic oversight, that's operational failure, really, because if they don't know these people's names, they don't know anything about them, where do they even start an investigation? They failed because they didn't even try to figure out more about these people or connect the dots anywhere else in order to figure out who these people were, where they came from, and try and find links that could have potentially brought their killer to justice.
And those links would have been incredibly important. They'd just been completely ignored the entire time because that's exactly what happened to them. So a little bit of like a victim breakdown from the victims that were named. We have John Doe 1, the Rolex kid. Now he was found decapitated. He had limbs removed cleanly at the joints, and that's important for later. His head was never recovered. It's just still Cleveland, get with it.
So there's just a head somewhere in Kingsbury Run, Cleveland, Ohio.
That's not the part you kick in the ditch. Ed, you should probably look for that.
Yeah, you can use a hook for a hand.
His cause of death was undetermined. His bodies did show signs of chemical exposure. John Doe 2, the tattooed man, Helen's man, he was found dismembered. The tattoo Helen was present on his arm. His cuts were also clean and deliberate. There were no defensive wounds noted, and his cause of death suspected strangulation, but that was unsurprisingly unconfirmed.
Can I intervene for just a moment? So the tattooed man was considered the tattooed man because of a singular tattoo?
Yeah, I guess so.
Is that what I'm getting? Like, that's all it takes to get a cool name?
Yeah, that could have possibly meant something, but they chose to ignore it anyway, so I don't even know why they gave him the cool name and not the Rolex kid.
I mean, and the cause of death was suspected strangulation, but it was unconfirmed. I feel like anybody that's a medical examiner would be able to determine maybe that is undetermined, but there would be signs of a strangulation, whether it be some kind of a ring around the neck or a crushed trachea, something showing that there was some kind of damage to his airways.
Yeah, it didn't say that his head was still missing, so I don't know how they could have not figured that out. Okay, and then we get to Jane Doe, the Lady of the Lake. She was also found decapitated, severe decomposition, likely submerged in this lake for weeks, and her cause of death was impossible to determine. And once again, her head never recovered. Yay! So now there's just two heads rolling around Cleveland that no one's been able to find since 1934. Cool. Good job.
Yep.
Other victims had similar patterns, the decapitation, the limb removal, but there was minimal blood at the dump sites, and several bodies appeared washed because we can't have dirty dead bodies laying around Kingsbury Run.
So they're suggesting that after the person had been delimbed, decapitated, whatever, they cleaned the blood, cleaned the bodies. So there was, and then decided
I
to
guess
put
so.
them in a riverbank and put them in the dirt and in the railway.
Yeah, and this weird thing is that it says that some may have been stored briefly before dismemberment. So I don't know if Lady of the Lake started taking up too much room and she had to make room for the tattooed man or how that worked, but they say somehow ended up elsewhere.
Well, they don't say the sizes of these people. Maybe he was confined to a shed, the person who had done this. I mean, it's
Could
hard to
be.
say. Like washing the remains, controlling decomposition, and removing heads, it just eliminates the cause of death, determination, and identification. That's not messy violence. That's honestly, it's pretty efficient. Like, good
It
for
is.
him. He knew what he was
Yeah, I
doing.
mean, he did, didn't he? Like I'm actually more impressed with the killer's way that he handled things way more than the investigators.
Uh,
He actually did things.
Investigators screwed this up, but the killer himself, he was a classy guy. He did it nicely. He did
I don't know if he was classy, but he certainly knew how to get things done.
it efficiently.
Yeah. And the bodies were placed where they could be found. They weren't hidden. They were near rail yards, they were near bridges, they were near rivers, and there was no coordinated effort to recover the missing heads.
So they didn't even care that these people didn't have the head. They're like, it's fine. We don't need that part.
We
No
don't need
wonder why
that.
there's still John Doe and Jane Doe, because they don't have a head to put a face to the body.
I'm really starting to feel more bad for Rolex Kid.
I mean, it just means the most important evidence was just quietly written off. It didn't matter. It's fine. Move
Yeah,
on.
that's exactly what happened. And in each body, where it gets even worse, each body was treated as a standalone emergency. They were different precincts, different reports. There was no central case file. There was no unified timeline, and there was no comparative analysis. So, like, they didn't even try to see if these things were linked, if it was the same type of person, if it was the same type of murder. Everything was separate.
I mean, serial investigations, they live or die on pattern recognition. And I've seen enough SVU to know. I know the last time I said snapped. This time I'm going SVU. I've watched enough SVU to know I like TV. Leave me alone.
I didn't say anything.
You're laughing at me. I
Yeah.
watch enough SVU to know, like, they watch the patterns of everybody, every serial killer, every rapist, everything to see how anybody is linked or if it can be linked to another crime or a singular person that might have been let go for a crime that he got away with. They live and die on pattern recognition, and Cleveland documented the details but refused to connect them, which allowed every single mistake to look isolated instead of systemic.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And especially if they don't identify the bodies, then there's no way to even start to establish that pattern, which is desperately needed in a case like this. And they just absolutely were like, nah, fuck that. We're just going to let the heads go and just see what we can come up with from there.
Let's go find some heads. We can make history.
Listen, are we about to be headhunters?
Ha, I see what you did there.
I know. It took a
Nice
minute, but you
pun.
got it. Thank you.
I got it.
Anyways, despite the bodies being found near the rail lines, there is no record of systemic interviews with the rail workers, the yard crews, or the maintenance staff. So just like, nah,
Interesting.
not even gonna ask.
Yeah. That's not oversight. That's avoiding the most convenient witness pool.
Yeah, and the police they didn't even attempt to get like basic geographic mapping of the dump sites. And that analysis was done decades later, and clustering was immediately obvious. Immediately.
Oh, man.
Obviously.
They didn't need modern profiling. They needed a map and curiosity. Somebody just needed to get them a treasure map and make it a game. Maybe they would have had more fun
Like,
and did their job properly.
I think Blue's Clues could have solved this faster than these detectives could have solved it.
I'm saying, like, if we went looking for these heads, I bet we can do it in less than a week.
No, I'm not going. I have things to do. So in 1935, Elliot Ness becomes the director of public safety. He reorganizes departments, he increases patrols, he demands visibility, but what he doesn't do is redesign the investigation.
So Ness improved optics, but not the outcomes. And the visibility increased, but the coordination didn't. So he didn't really
Yes.
do anything.
Right. And under pressure, Ness focused on a suspect. Just a suspect, finally. So why don't you tell us about who that suspect is, my dear sweet Holly?
The suspect is Dr. Francis Edward Sweeney. Hearing this, immediate thought goes to Sweeney Todd due to decapitation.
Mm-hmm.
I just think Sweeney Todd. But Dr. Francis Edward Sweeney, he was a physician. He was a World War I veteran. He had plenty of surgical training. He suffered with alcoholism and mental health struggles. He had allegedly sent taunting postcards to Ness. Handwriting analysis was inconclusive. Polygraphs were failed, which meant nothing legally. So suspicion hardened without the evidence. The private belief replaced the proof. And once that happened, alternative leads stopped mattering. So it didn't even matter. They were focused, they were honed in on Dr. Francis Edward Sweeney.
Can we call him Dr. Frank? Let's call him Dr. Frank.
Is Francis, is that Frank? Yeah, I guess it is. Frankie. Let's call him Frankie.
Dr. Frank.
Okay. They were honed in on this one guy, and Sweeney committed himself into a mental institution, which had resolved the discomfort, but not the guilt.
So we're going to get in now to Elliot Ness's quote-unquote solution.
Oh, yay.
Boy. Yeah, get ready. So
I'm
under
ready.
pressure, I don't know. Under pressure, Ness ordered the burning of shanty towns in Kingsbury Run. You heard it right. The burning of shanty towns in Kingsbury Run. So entire communities were displaced. The theory was that this would disrupt the killer, but there was no evidence for that.
I'm sorry. What? You lost me. Hold on. This would disrupt the killer. What? To like burn the shanty town. So you're burning down the city to disrupt the killer from what? Killing more people? So you're creating chaos everywhere else to prevent another murder? Is that what they're saying?
So basically, yeah, he was trying to displace the victim pool, I guess is kind of what I get out of this. So he figured if he burns the whole town down, those people, I guess, would then leave, and then there would be nobody, and then the killing would just stop. But instead, he just displaced everybody, and nobody had a place to live, and that whole section of the community was just homeless and had nowhere to go.
All right. So, like, burning neighborhoods produced headlines, but it didn't produce any suspects, and it eliminated witnesses and destroyed the trust within the community, I'm sure.
That is absolutely correct. And Holly, there really isn't much more to cover about the actual investigation because it was never solved, right? So after they burned the shanty towns, I think it just kind of all dissipated. But as far as I know, the killing actually did stop. I'm going to have to actually look that up real quick, and I may have to just add this in because there was more to it. So, hold on. What happened after the shanty town burning? Cleveland torso. Okay, which ended... Oh, it did. So it did stop it. Well, that was anticlimactic as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, but his solution worked.
Oh, the first two dismembered bodies were found together on Kingsbury Run on 23rd, 1935, of which was later identified by his fingerprints. Oh, look, we have a little follow-up here. I don't really care about all that. Florence Polio? That's a dumb name. All right. I'm not going to put that in my podcast. The similarities...
I really wish you would.
Okay. Looked up some extra stuff about this case. The murders were committed between 1935 and 1938, and they were definitely serial killings. Most of the bodies were discovered in or near the Kingsbury Run area, a creek bed that ran from East 90th Street and Kinsman Road, southeast.
We have a place to look for the heads now.
We do, but the name of this river is damn near impossible. The Cuyahoga River.
It's the Cuyahoga River.
Cuyahoga River? Why did I
Yeah.
say it like that the first time? Most victims were dismembered and all were decapitated. Most of the victims appeared to be transients or derelicts living in shanty towns on the fringes of society. This, we already know this, we've already told you. So the murderer was never discovered. The first two dismembered bodies were found together in Kingsbury Run on the 23rd of September in 1935, one of which was later identified by his fingerprints as Edward Andracy, 29 years old, an orderly at the local hospital. The third victim was Florence Polillo, found near Orange Avenue, 26th of January, 1936. And between June 1936 and August 1938, 9 more bodies were discovered, one of which was identified as Mrs. Rose Wallace. Elliot Ness immediately ordered the shanty towns of Kingsbury Run burned to the ground, which ultimately ended the torso murders. So that really dumb idea actually worked.
I mean, that would have been effective. It did its job. Like, their little fake solution turned out to be an effective solution.
Yeah. So Police Lieutenant Peter Marilow, who worked on the case for 6 years, characterized the killer as coldly efficient and as relentless as an executioner when in the mood to kill. Although somebody else confessed to the Polillo murder, he hanged himself before he could be tried, and despite intensive police work, there was never sufficient evidence to make a case against any other suspect. So the one suspect, I guess they could have had, hung himself, and then so they just focused on Dr. Frank Sweeney.
Dr. Frankie?
Dr. Frankie, yeah. Miss Holly, I've added a little segment piece to the end of our shows, and I'm excited for it, and it's going to be called Why This Case is a Hot Mess. And it's going to point out some bullet points as to what went absolutely bullshittery wrong with this case. So this case is a hot mess for some very clear reasons. 1, the victims were absolutely dehumanized. 2, patterns were ignored. 3, evidence was fragmented. 4, politics replaced strategy. 5, a suspect was sidelined without proof. And 6, panic drove decisions from start to finish. So now, Holly, I want you to explain how this much activity managed to produce nothing.
I mean, well, none of this required bad luck. It required everyone involved doing exactly enough to avoid being questioned. Removing names saved time. Ignoring the patterns avoided accountability. Fragmenting evidence ensured that nobody owned the failure. And once politics took over, looking busy was enough. So a suspect was picked without any proof. The neighborhoods were burned without any kind of results other than the fact, actually there were results because it ended the killing. So they destroyed the community, but they stopped the killer. No one had ever had to stop and explain why nothing was working. Why, when this failure is comfortable, it stops being a mistake and it starts functioning exactly as it was designed. So yeah, that's a hot mess.
Yeah.
If you're wondering how a serial killer operated for years without being stopped, the answer isn't brilliance. It's that no one was required to prove that they were doing their job. No one faced consequences when the investigation stalled. That's not mystery, that's permission. Like, they just allowed it to happen, and they were cool with it.
Yeah, it's like they didn't care, so they called in Elliot Ness, and they were like, burn the city. And the city was like, Ohio! And just fucking did it. With Mimi leading the charge.
I like that. Good job.
Oh my God. Well, the Cleveland torso murders, they didn't stay unsolved because the answers were unknowable. They stayed unsolved because no one ever slowed down long enough to build an investigation that actually worked. But if you want more cases where the system confidently walks past the point, make sure you're subscribed, following, and sharing Hot Mess Murder Club on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. New episodes drop every Monday, and remember, if your investigation involves burning neighborhoods, hiring a celebrity cop, and still 0 arrests, it's probably not an investigation anymore. Goodbye.
Say bye, Kiki.